What's going on, everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new ASUS ROG Tessen, and this was announced a little while ago. I've been wanting to get my hands on it, finally able to, and basically what we have here is a super portable USB Type-C foldable controller for your Android device. This also features Aura RGB lighting. It's got metal paddles around the rear, 18-watt fast charging over USB Type-C, and with a USB Type-C telescopic controller like this, we don't have to worry about any kind of latency because we've got a wired connection. The unboxing experience for this thing was pretty nice, and you might notice it looks like we've only got half a controller, and like I mentioned, this is a foldable controller. The name Tessen is actually Japanese. It's basically Japanese war fan, and that's where it's getting its name from, having that foldable design there. Obviously, we've got a telescopic controller. Some people know these as stretchy controllers. They claim that most phones will fit in here, even with a case on it. It does come with a few extra accessories, and with that angle to the side there, it actually fits in the hand really nicely. Rear metal paddles, and the hinge system here does seem pretty sturdy. And of course, since this is an ROG device, we do have a little bit of RGB on both sides, and this is fully controllable from Armory Crate on Android. Overall, digging the design here. Once it's folded up, it's really compact. We've got an etched ROG logo up front, and taking a look around the rear here, we do have a really grippy setup. So yeah, I mean, it definitely has a little bit of texture to it, so it doesn't seem like it's going to slide under your hand easily. USB Type-C charging in, and they claim up to 18 watts. We will test that by the end of the video. There's a replaceable mid-rubber section, so this is the tall one that I have in here right now because for the phones that I'm going to be using, I don't have a case on them, but it does come with a few extra accessories just in case you've got a larger case. You can probably make most anything fit in this unit. Programmable rear metal paddles with a little bit of grip on them, and yeah, I mean, we can go into software and reprogram every button on this controller using Armory Crate. And like I mentioned, it does come with a few extra accessories. Basically, these are rubber spacers, so if you did have a larger case, you could go with the smaller midsection. And if you take a look right here, we can actually put this right where the USB Type-C port is. We've got another one for the other side, and for something like the Galaxy S24 Ultra without a case, or even the Pixel 8a, this is the setup that I've been using. But I did test it with the Galaxy S24 Ultra and one of the Samsung cases that I have for it. I didn't need any of these spacers installed, it just kind of sat right in there very nicely. I did want to test a couple different phone sizes, so I've got the Pixel 8a and the Galaxy S24 Ultra. And with a lot of these USB Type-C gaming controllers, the USB Type-C port in here is kind of flexible, but we don't need it with this because the whole controller itself folds. So once we fold it just a bit, we can go ahead and slide the phone in. The Pixel 8a does fit in here, and it's not a ginormous controller, so it doesn't make it look really odd. I've tested a few rather large telescopic controllers that once you put a smaller phone like the Pixel 8a in here, it does make it look really weird, you know, having that super small screen with kind of full-size controls on the side. This thing is really compact, and again, once you fold this up, you can put it right in your pocket. But I gotta say, slapping something in here like the Galaxy S24 Ultra, just a much larger device, does kind of fill it out, and it does look really good. I mean, we've got a pretty big display here with this phone. Sits in there quite nicely. As you can see around back here, we're not hitting those camera humps on either side. So, you know, this definitely has some larger camera bumps on it. Having something, you know, kind of raised up a bit does work out really well. Getting to the overall feel, it is very comfortable. And as for the buttons, the D-pad and the face buttons are actually using mechanical dome switches underneath. So we do have those mechanical switches. They're specially designed for this controller here, and they'll probably be using these more in other devices down the road. Linear triggers. It does have console grade analog sticks, and when it comes to this D-pad, I'm not a huge fan of dome switches or mechanical switches with the D-pad, but the roll on this feels pretty decent, so it's something we'll definitely have to test out in a fighting game just to see if it functions properly. You can use this controller on your Android device without installing any kind of software, but we do have access to Armory Crate, and once we get in here, you can see that we can remap any of these buttons. We've got the front, back, and top. If I tap on one of these face buttons, it's going to bring up our menu and we can remap it to any other button we want. We can also completely disable that button. Same goes for the rear metal paddles. So we'll go to the back here. We can set this up for any of the buttons. Right now, I believe I have it set up for B and X. So in a lot of the platformers I like to play, I've got kind of a dash move and a jump move there, but you can set it up however you'd like. Same for the triggers and the shoulder buttons. And when it comes to those rear paddles, we can actually map them with a hotkey on the fly, so we don't need to enter Armory Crate. While you're playing a game, you can actually use the hotkey and press whatever extra button you want it to be mapped to. That way you can swap it out on the fly if you need to. And we've also got our Aura RGB control. From here, we can customize the RGB. Got it set up for rainbow, but we can change the direction, we can change the speed, we can also change the brightness. There's a few different presets in here. Rainbow is my favorite, but we also have this comet, which looks pretty cool. So just kind of flash right in between each other. Again, you can change the direction so it'll flash outwards. Color cycle, and if you head over to the official website, you can actually mess around with the RGB over there. It'll give you a better look at all of the settings here with lighting on this unit. This isn't using Hall-based analog sticks, but going into the gamepad tester here, everything falls back into place. Haven't had any drift, and I know it does take a little while for some of these devices to get drift, but those analog sticks are zeroing right back out. And I do love these triggers. So some of my favorite games to play are racing games. Having full control over that gas and brake is really awesome. And this is pretty accurate. So if you just want to go halfway up with the throttle there, I'm just going to call it throttle right now. Comes in handy for drifting, launch control. We can get it right there with these linear triggers. We've got the left trigger that'll do the same thing, but yeah, these do have quite a bit of throw on them. I also wanted to give you a look at the dead zone test for these analog sticks, and I'm pretty impressed by how accurate they are. We've been seeing a lot of companies, come to the market with Hall-based analog sticks, so it uses magnets instead of a physical connection. These aren't Hall-based, but for what we have here, they're working really well. And finally, the D-pad. This is something that I was worried about initially going into it because I'm not a big fan of dome switches. I always like to have just a conductive pad. But with these newer domed mechanical switches, I think they're going to be working pretty well in fighting games and platformers. At the time of making this video, they do have a list of supported games on Android that'll work right out of the box with this controller. Unfortunately, in Armory Crate for Android, we don't have an on-screen key mapper. You could use a third-party one like Mantis Buddy, and it will detect this controller. But if you wanted to use this for, let's say, Genshin Impact, which really doesn't support controllers on Android, that's exactly what you're going to need to do. Hopefully, down the road, they do add a built-in on-screen key mapper to Armory Crate. Jumping right into some testing, first thing I wanted to get out of the way was this D-pad, so I'm using Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with the Redream emulator. These new switches that they have do work way better than I thought they would. Much different from older dome switches, and don't get me wrong, I mean, you can definitely get used to most D-pads out there, but with the way they have this D-pad position and those mechanical dome switches, straight out of the box, you can just start pulling off your favorite special moves. Here's Shredder's Revenge, and the reason I wanted to go here was because I've got those rear paddles set up right now for a jump and a roll. This really does help me out in a lot of these platformers, and right on the fly, if you needed to remap that, depending on what game you have, you can actually do it. Again, you don't need to go right into Armory Crate. I did test out Minecraft, one of those games that just works with all controllers. It'll even work with a keyboard and mouse. And one game I really wanted to test in this video was Call of Duty Warzone, but every time I boot that game up, it seems like they're under maintenance. The controller does work with the game. It's actually listed over on their website, but I was unable to start it up because of that. Android games that natively support controllers and emulators are going to work just fine with the Tessen. Next thing I wanted to show off was a little bit of cloud gaming using Xbox Game Pass. And really, this was personal curiosity. I just wanted to check out how those triggers function with the gas and brake in this game. And yeah, I mean, we can definitely really feather that gas and brake if you need to. The Game Pass app automatically detected the controller. There was no setup that I needed to do. Another one I tested was Steam Link. I didn't go to Moonlight because I personally only use Steam Link for in-home streaming. And yeah, the Steam Link app automatically detected the controller and everything seemed like it was in the right place. If not, you can always go through and remap it. It's pretty easy to do so with that streaming service. Before I wrap this video up, there's two more things I wanted to take a look at. First one being phone case usage with the controller. This case is pretty thick. It's actually an official Samsung S24 Ultra case, and all I did here was actually replace the midsection with the smaller midsection that the controller comes with, and this fits right in there, not a problem at all. So there's actually a little more room that you could work with. So even if I had a thicker case than this, we could probably get this to fit. But yeah, really nice to see this. The next thing I wanted to take a look at was pass-through charging. And ASUS claims that it'll do up to 18 watts, which isn't super fast charging, but it will keep any phone topped up while you're playing a game. So what I've got here is just my 100-watt power brick. This actually gives me a readout and tells me exactly how fast the device is charging that's plugged in. We'll just give it a second here. We'll move in a bit closer, and this is charging at 9.1 volts, 1.9 amps. So we actually multiply those together, and that comes out to 17.3 watts. So I mean, we're right there on the money, 18-watt fast charging with this unit. I like the D-pad here. I've actually been using this for a couple days now, and yeah, I've definitely got used to it. Feels really good. Very small form factor. Once you fold this thing up, it'll fit right in your pocket. It works with the larger devices with cases installed, so that's definitely a plus. But there's one thing I think they're missing here, and that's a 3.5mm audio jack. It would have been really nice to have one of those on the side of this, because as we know, most phones nowadays just don't have them pre-installed, so having something on the controller that would work over that USB Type-C port would be pretty nice. Overall, great design. It functions as intended. Love to see a 3.5mm audio jack on one of these in the future. And I think Armory Crate for Android, at least, for other Android devices other than the ROG phones, definitely needs a little bit of work. We need a few more features like an on-screen key mapper. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you're interested in learning a little more about the ROG Tessen, I will leave links to their official website down below. And if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. Like always, thanks for watching.